Hello, my friends. Artificial intelligence hasn't been with us for long, yet we're already talking about a possible AI bubble burst. The bubble is economic, not technical, but economically, there's a real problem. There are indicators that are in the red. There are even people who had taken short positions. That means they were betting on the collapse of the markets in 2008, and today they're taking positions in the big AI companies. So, who will be wrong? Who will be right? The next few weeks, the next few months will tell us. But there is a real acceleration today. What is a bubble? A bubble is a system, it's a kind of frenzy that takes over the markets, which will create a bubble because it's full of air. There's no real value inside, but a lot of money is sucked in and it pushes assets to completely absurd valuations, stratospheric valuations, but that make absolutely no sense. People coming out of greed, people coming out of opportunism, they're not realistic at all, but some are cynical. I'll talk to you about it in a minute. And then it inflates the markets, it inflates certain assets until the moment when the bubble bursts. And these assets return to their true value, return to their intrinsic value. That means all the inflated value is taken away from them, which sometimes represents 99% of their actual value. So in the past, there have been all kinds of bubbles. Even in the last century, there were bubbles. Imagine in the railway industry, it means that at one point, railways were considered the next El Dorado. It was considered the thing that pushed boundaries, and many companies got into railways, operating rolling stock, building more and more railway lines. Indeed, in the market, it created a financial craze around it. So railways are still here. We still have railways to this day, except that the financial excitement wasn't justified. And at some point, of course, you have a collapse. More recently, we had the dot-coms, the dot-com companies, and many dot-com companies are still here, except that at one time it was enough to have a website. It was enough to say that you were in internet and networking technology and all that, for capital to flow in a way that was completely disproportionate to the value created by the company. So what happens? The valuation inflates, and then one day, bam, it collapses. Real estate, 2008, same thing. And today, we very, very likely have AI, artificial intelligence, which economically speaking is a bubble. But this time, it's bigger than planet Earth. And the day it collapses, well, that's it. Actually, you should know that a lot of people, a lot of operators are inside these bubbles for cynical reasons. Quite simply, they know it's a bubble. They know the valuations are pushed too high. But they tell themselves, I'm smarter than the others. I know it's going to burst. I know it's going to collapse, but I'll know how to get out at the right moment, right? I get in when the bubble is this size. I make money when it's this size. And before it bursts, I'll get out. It's like someone surfing a wave. He knows it's going to end on a rock, but he says to himself, I'm smart. I'll get off the wave before it hits the rock. Except that there are so many people in it that the moment it starts to collapse, there's panic because there's a huge psychological element in the markets. A good part of valuations is driven by psychology, by greed and all that. And so what happens is that it collapses all at once. So maybe a few numbers to set the tone, and also a key piece of information these days which shows an acceleration. Look, the number is that if you take OpenAI, the company behind ChatGPT, they made 13 billion in revenue. All right, 13 billion, that's good. It's great, except that for those 13 billion, they have 1,400 billion in financial commitments. So you see, there's a huge disproportion, 13 billion, 1.4 trillion. There is no company that can survive in the long term with such a disproportion between its income, its cash position, and its financial commitments that it will have to face at some point. Because right now, it's nice to create hype, talk about promises, all that. But there are concrete realities, market realities, and concrete realities. I'll just give you an example of a concrete reality. If you look at the United States, they think that by 2028, with all the data center and supercomputer projects and all that related to artificial intelligence, they'll have to build roughly between, according to estimates, 38 to 70 nuclear power plants to power all that, 38 to 70. By the way, you notice that Europe is completely out of this equation because Europe, with its energy phobia, you see, they're phobic about building energy infrastructure. They're phobic about spending it. They're more likely to destroy a nuclear power plant than to build one. Just look at Germany. So Europe, let's say, is out of all this. Well, you see building in 2 years. By 2028, building 38 to 70 nuclear power plants is impossible. It's guaranteed not to happen. Why? Because if we compare over the last 30 years, the Americans have managed to build two nuclear power plants. You can't build two in 30 years and then want to build 70 in 2 years. It's not possible. Even if you just want to build one plant, even in the United States. And despite the Trump administration, which promised to make things easier and reduce paperwork, it still takes you probably 7 or 8 years. Just filling out paperwork, just going before commissions, just going to officials, going up to ministries, getting visas here and there, stamps here and there, legalizations here and there. It's a bureaucratic nightmare. Besides, we can see that the United States and Europe as well are also collapsing under the weight of their own bureaucracy. They've become bureaucratic nightmares. And that's why China is surpassing them so quickly, because they're very agile, they're accelerating, they're moving very fast. It's pretty crazy that today a communist regime like China's is less bureaucratic than the European or American regimes. So in any case, the numbers just don't add up at all. So what happened is that the news I told you about is that 2 days ago, Sam Altman, the boss at OpenAI, the company behind ChatGPT, well, he suggested that the US government should help guarantee his loans. What does that mean then? Loan guarantees by the US government? It simply means that the US government becomes a co-signer and commits to paying back the creditors if OpenAI can't repay. If it defaults, it means the taxpayer has to pay back. It strongly reminds us of the bailout system that happened in 2008. What happened in 2008? It's that the state stepped in for the banks by injecting money into them, by paying back their creditors to prevent them from going under. So there are people who think that AI companies are too big to fail. And so if things ever go badly for them, they can invest, write checks, hand out bonuses, and hire people with salaries of several hundred million. But if it fails, we need AI so much, because before AI, we didn't even know how to breathe. Before AI, we couldn't even write an email or a book or drive a car or a plane. And so we need AI so much that if the company ever collapses, it's better to take money from the taxpayer. Except that that's a bit of a naive view, because even now, um, David Zacks, what's called the AI czar of the White House, well, he's already made his position clear today. He said that under no circumstances will the American government bail out AI companies. If some have to go under, if some have to go bankrupt, well, so be it. There will be others to replace them. It means there's no problem. He clearly said it's dog eat dog and the strongest will win. We're not going to intervene. Because Altman's problem, why did he want a guarantee from the federal government? Because when he has a debt guarantee, well, people will lend to him at an extremely low rate. And then there are plenty of institutional investors and all that who will see this debt as very low risk and will inject money. Otherwise, they wouldn't do it. Because who is going to lend, honestly, who is going to lend to a company whose financial commitments are many times higher than its income? There's no sane investor who would sign them a check hoping to see his money again one day, because hype is all well and good, talking, creating hype and all that. Knowing that today, more than 95% of AI projects in companies fail, 95% of projects. And those are figures from Fortune and others. Projects that arrive with great fanfare, all that. We're going to revolutionize everything. We're going to push Geraldine out of admin and all that. We spend millions and millions, and then after a while, we don't see any results, right? So what's happening is that Altman is signaling, this is what's worrying, he's signaling that his company is running out of cash. Why does he need a government guarantee? Because no one wants to lend to him. That's the reality. Another thing as well, which is very worrying, when you look at the money flow of companies involved in AI, you see a lot of circular flows. What does that mean, a circular flow? Imagine you open a company today. And then what I do is I give you €1 million in subsidies here. I give you a check. And what you do is I give you the check today. In a week, you come and buy €1 million worth of services from me. So you record in your accounting that you received 1 million. Okay, I gave it to you. And in my accounting, I record that I sold for 1 million. So you see, we've already doubled the money. We've already doubled the money. We've counted the same money twice. So imagine if every week we do this, we start sending each other the money. And we can also involve a second, a third, and a fourth company. Let me give you a simple example. NVIDIA gives money to OpenAI. What OpenAI does is buy data center space from Oracle, and then Oracle buys NVIDIA cards. You see that the money has gone full circle. So to some extent, these are companies that belong to the same ecosystem. So of course, they buy things from each other. That's true to some extent, except that now there are concerns that we're no longer talking about moderation, but rather about excess. We're dealing with money that's being counted multiple times as it changes hands in a circular way. So by turning over and over again, it actually creates the appearance of high valuation, high turnover, and high revenue. Whereas in reality, there's nothing behind it. Behind it, you just have people paying $20 a month for ChatGPT, and 95% of ChatGPT users use it for free. You have 5% who pay $20 a month, plus a few government contracts and all that's good. But in the end, there's not enough money to justify the trillions that are on the table, you see. So that's how it is. The people who are investing today are investing in a promise. It's like always, people don't invest for today, they invest in a future promise. Except that this future promise, there are a lot of people who are finding it harder and harder to see it come true. So let's see what happens. But just to finish, you know that politicians, in a way, are interested in this. Why are they interested? In what way? Why do they turn a blind eye? Why, in some way, is it not so bad for them? There's a reason. It's that if you look at the S&P 500 in the United States, the recent growth of the S&P 500, of the index, 26% of it is due to AI companies. That means that in a way it also skews the economic figures. So politicians tend to turn a blind eye to the abuses by saying, yeah, it's great, just let them do it, because, well, without them, it's likely that without these AI balloons full of hot air, the American economy would now be showing numbers that are compatible or consistent with a recession. You see, right now it looks like everything is fine and all, but with completely artificial numbers. So the balloon, this big artificial balloon, has reached such proportions, even compared to the American economy, that when you put it on this economy, which is actually sluggish, but when you put it on top, it gives the impression that everything is fine, and that's just an impression. So the day it bursts, well, that's it. You'll have to run extremely fast. Well, we'll see by then. Anyway, thank you for watching this video. Up to this point, just a reminder, my book, Astrology. Logie. Okay. Thank you, my friends, for watching this video up to this point, and I'll see you in the next one. See you very soon.